Do you know how many celebrities right now are red? Yeah, everybody. You know, right now we've got Drew Barrymore. She's a redhead. Blake Lively is a redhead. We've got Rumor Wilson is a redhead. We've got Rihanna, Scarlett Johansson. We've got some very fashionable, very interesting image celebrities, people who are out there that guests are bringing their pictures into us all the time that are now red. And the thing is that reds in the past weren't popular because of what? What was the biggest challenge with redheads? They fade, right? So here's what I want to do. I want to share with you today some ideas on how to create great redheads. Is that cool? Awesome. Awesome. Because red is my favorite. So the first thing I want to share with you is what is important to red. Anybody tell me? It's the second reflect. Now, I just hit a second button on this, so let me see if I can get back here. It's the second reflect that is important when you're looking at a redhead. And let me explain to you what the second reflect means. The fact that the person's hair is red does not really matter to your eye. What matters to your eye, is it red violet? Is it red copper? Is it red gold? Is it red? Your eye is picking up on the violet, the copper, the gold, yes, the red. Because when you look at it, we call everybody redheads whether they're orange, yeah, or the color of wine. But clearly to our eye, there's a difference, and it is that second reflect that really makes it jump. So I think what's important when we're doing redheads is to focus on that second reflect and make sure that as the hair moves, you have a good influence of a nice gold, of a nice copper, of a nice red to it. Focus more on the second reflect rather than the first. Once you've decided it's red, that's easy. Second thing I'd share with you is that when we're doing reds, if we did blondes the way we do reds, nobody would want to be a blonde. Here's why. Think about it just culturally in our industry. When you're highlighting somebody's hair blonde, do you make them the blonde that they want to be, or do you make them a little bit lighter and then glaze them back? Little lighter and glaze them back, right? If somebody wants to be a light golden blonde, we don't lighten them to gold. We lighten them to yellow, right? And then we glaze the gold back in, correct? Because if we lighten them to yellow, it would not be blonde enough, and it would appear, I heard somebody say it over here, brassy. Do you agree? Here's what we do with reds. We make redheads the exact red they want to be. And as soon as they leave our salon, walk out the front door and start walking to their car, they're fading from the red they want to be. Yes? When they get up the next morning and they wash their hair, they're fading from the red that they want to be. Do you agree? Now, there are new technologies in hair color that keep hair color from fading the way hair colors used to fade, which means they would leave red and they would come back like blondish. Yeah, like a blonde orange. Today, does hair color fade? Yeah, all hair color fades. The color in the asphalt on the road fades, yes? The color on that we've painted our house fades. The shirts that we're wearing, it's going to fade. Do we agree? Here's what we want to do. Color the person to be the red they want to be after they fade. Does that make sense? Yes? Make them redder than they want to be when they're in the salon. Here's why. What leaves first, the base or the glaze? The glaze. If we go back and we look at all of our formulas in the salon, the base gets us the exact red that we want, right? And then the glaze gets it back to what we wanted it to be. Do you agree? The problem is the base was exactly where we wanted it to be, so as soon as it started washing, blow drying, flat iron, going outside, we've already faded from where we wanted to be. Instead, think of it this way. Make them redder with the permanent hair color. Now, when you glaze them to soften the red, almost to brown it out a little bit. Yes? I like to glaze my redheads, make the base a little bit stronger. So in other words, other people might call it hot roots type of thing. But instead then take a golden glaze and go over it and just mellow it out a little bit. If you have a color enhancing shampoo, you can do it with that too. Because all I'm looking for is that Band-Aid. Yeah? It's almost like the Band-Aid that we look for from a glaze for highlights, where if we do highlights today, sometimes they're a little bit too contrasty. So we just, like in a few shampoos, they'll be perfect. But right now it appears a little bright, so we'd put a glaze on it for like 2 seconds. Just to soften it, knowing that that will wash away in a couple days. Do the same thing with your glazes for your reds. Instead, soften what you put in there permanently, and you will fade to the red the person wants to be. I love the fact that at our salon, we can say to our guests, your red's not going to fade. Now, if you go, is it bulletproof? It ain't bulletproof. Do you still need to use good products? Yes. Do you still need to, if you're a sun worshiper, go out there and put a hat on? Yes. But you're not going to get the fadage you had before. Your hair color is going to look better longer. And the one thing I love about redheads, once you solve that problem for them, they become your biggest evangelists because they want to tell every other redhead that they know that they need to come to your salon because finally their red doesn't fade. Does that make sense? So instead of doing what we were told before, which was a lot of times in our formula, we had both brown and red in the base, and we're always told when we glaze the ends, take the brown out and just glaze the ends with the red. What we're going to do is we're going to take some brown out of that base too. We're going to make sure we put more red in their hair so that they fade to become the color that they want. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes? I saw a question. Okay, excellent question. Would you use 2 different glazes, one at the base and one at the ends? Yes, if you're starting this at the beginning, because of what we've done in the past, the ends will still have faded. So I'm going to have to put more red back in there. But what I'm not doing anymore is, and we know this, the definition of insanity is doing what? We've been doing the same thing for the last 20 years, where we've been doing the base and then taking the red out and doing the ends and still complaining about it. We never put enough red in the base. Yeah? Once you get it going, you'll notice that. Here's something else. And this gentleman who's standing right here, and Tom, I talk about this all the time, and I'm hoping you remember this because I didn't know you're going to be here today, but what I'm going to share is up here in this PowerPoint. So everybody, this is Mr. Tom Dispenza, who's over here by the column on the right. Yeah? Tom owns a color line called Chromastics. And we met about 20-something years ago when you were the National Technical Training Manager for Clairol for the U.S., correct? Whole world. Yeah, that's right, yes. Well, I think you were just U.S., and then you were all over the world after me. Oh, very cool. I was still a youngin' when he trained me, and it's just he has had so much influence on my career. So first of all, we want to color the red to fade. We know it's going to fade, so make sure that the fadage is the color we want it to be. Next thing is don't overglaze, and this is what Tom taught me. I think we're in Stamford, Connecticut, and he held up this glass bottle, and he said to me, "What color is this?" And in this glass bottle, it was potting soil brown. And I said to him, "Tom, it's brown." And he said, "No, it's not." He said, "What color is it?" And I said, "Tom, it's brown." He said, "No, it's not." He said, "What color is it?" I go, "Tom, it's brown." And he took this little bit of powder out of this and put it in water, and it turned bright red. And what Tom taught me on that day was that an oversaturated red actually looks brown to your eye. So you ever refresh somebody and you pull straight red through and you pull straight red through and you're pulling straight red through and you're wondering why the ends are getting browner instead of redder? What happens is your eye can only read a certain saturation of red, then it becomes too much information and looks brown, and I can prove it to you in the same way he proved it to me. You ever have somebody who comes in and their ends are browned out? And you take a lightener with a little bit of water and you put it on it, in 30 seconds it goes back to bright red? Anybody else? Yeah? That means it wasn't, because if you took a brunette who had the same color brown and you took lightener with some water for 30 seconds and put it on, it wouldn't turn red, it'd turn brassy. Yeah? but it wouldn't turn back to that bright red. I find many, many times challenges that we cause with redheads is because we have overglazed, oversaturated, and browned out our own reds by putting too much red in it, to the point that our eye can no longer see that wavelength of light. Did I explain that properly? All right. It's the first time in 20 years I had to explain it in front of them. That was very cool. Tom, thank you. And the other thing that I would highly recommend with reds, look for direct dyes. You know, basically, we've got two different types of dyes that we're working with. We're working with permanent or oxidative dyes, and we're working with oxidized, preformed, direct dyes, whatever term we want to put towards it. When we're working with redheads and we're having trouble with filling, we're having trouble with the color holding, we're having trouble with shine, the answer to almost any one of those questions is a direct deposit dye molecule. Because that permanent dye molecule can only do so much, and what happens is it's many times under higher degrees of porosity can also go flat. And I find with reds, a lot of times when we have one that is fading and fading and fading, it's because somebody has pulled through things so many times that we have this over porosity through the mids and ends. And the challenge is at that point, we might actually have hair that is very hard to color anymore because the protein sites within it are so broken down that dye molecule doesn't even have places to hold on and become stable within the hair. They start to go flat. They start to go off. And that's when really what we're looking to do is we're not looking to so much color the hair, we're looking to stain it. Yes? And direct deposit dyes can do that for us. So in the same way we used to think to ourselves, if we needed to refresh those mids and ends, look to pull the brown out of it. I now, when I'm looking to refresh those mids and ends, look to put direct deposit dyes into that formula. I want permanent, 100% permanent oxidative dye at the base, whether it's a demi-permanent or a permanent color that has the ability to lift. But down those mids and ends, if I'm pulling anything through, it's going to have some direct dye in there that's going to help with shine. It's going to help with the right saturation of the color. And it's also going to help give me some staining quality. So I'm going to both get some color and some stain at the same time for great wearability. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes? Cool. I see your question. Okay, the question was direct dyes like, did I mean like Manic Panic? No, actually, for instance, let's talk about a couple different lines we can talk about. In Matrix, for instance, you have copper and red accents that you can add to it, intensifiers. Those are direct dyes, and we can actually add those to our color formulas. You know, for people who are used to using a product like Shades EQ, you'll see that in Shades EQ and a lot of the red colors that you'd pull down the mids and ends, you have a balance of both direct and oxidative dye in there. And that's why you get that beautiful scalp to ends evenness within some of those colors, because they will work. You know, some of them where you have good porosity, you have more coloring going on there. Some of them where you have higher degrees of porosity, you have more staining going on there, but it'll give you a more even balance from scalp to ends. Did that answer your question? Cool. Yes? Okay. The question is that with direct dyes, you can't use them by themselves. You have to add them to the color. Is that what you said? Okay. One of the things, many times you're working with them already. A lot of times if you look at your modifiers, intensifiers, if you look for your accents, your additives that you have to your color, you notice that when you squeeze those out, those reds come out red already. Those golds come out gold already. As opposed to when you're working with your colors that are level 1 to 10, when you squirt out those reds, they come out kind of a clear color. If they come out clear, it's 100% permanent oxidative dye. If it comes out already the color it's supposed to be, there's your direct dyes right there. And one of the things that I always do with new product lines when they come out to find out where these dyes are, get those little yak hair swatches from Pivot Point, and I dye out the entire line with developer and without developer. Because if I dye it out without developer and I put it on and process it for 30 minutes and I rinse it off and it looks like nothing happened, that's 100% permanent oxidative dye. If I put it on the Yak Hair swatch and I rinse it off and some of it has some stain to it, that's how much direct dye would be in there. So that's how you discover where those are. Cool? Awesome. Great exercise when you're learning a new color line.